Welcome to the Food for Thought podcast. It's nice to see you again, and thank you for joining us today. Today we're talking about what I call the domino effect. So the domino effect has to do with, it ties back to what I had mentioned earlier in the earlier videos about every word that we speak, every step we take, every action we make begins with a thought. I also gave you kind of a poetic statement that I had said earlier about your thoughts. That's where it all starts. Your thoughts become your words, become your actions, become your steps, and eventually your destiny. And I also mentioned that it was kind of a little bit poetic when you think about it. However, that actually happens on a biological and physiological level. And that's what we're going to talk about today, the domino effect. So the domino effect, essentially, let's start with this. All people are broken. We're all broken. We're not all perfect, okay? We all make mistakes. We sometimes come into adulthood with brokenness because of past experiences, things that maybe trigger us from old memories. So we all have that. Now, remember I said it's connected to the biological. So some of these effects, they actually affect our neurons. We talked about what a neuron is, if you remember. It looks kind of like a hand. And what wires together fires together, and that stays there forever. But you also learned about the power of the glue. So go back and review that video. That'll be helpful, very helpful to you. So we have our neuron, and those neurons, they're not just in your brain, they're also in your gut. As a matter of fact, you probably have more neurons in your gut than you do in your whole body. And so these neurons, these thought processes, when they become toxic, they affect us on a physiological level. And what that means is it can affect everything from our gut to our muscles to our ligaments. When our ligaments and muscles get achy or sore, it can also affect our blood flow. It can give us a headache. It can give us tired bones. So these physical effects are typically tied back to what I call stinking thinking, bad thoughts, toxic thoughts, things we're holding on to. So we talked a little bit about letting that go in the last couple of episodes, and I would encourage you to go back and review those if you have questions about today. But the interesting thing about the domino effect is it has an amazing outcome, something that we don't typically think about. So to give you an illustration of the domino effect, I created a little prop here that demonstrates it. So I hope you could see this. Okay. So it all begins with our thought, as I mentioned. Everything begins with a thought, everything. Every step you make, every word you speak, every action you make begins with a thought, okay? So here we have our thoughts, okay? And then we have our words. I think you can see that. We have what I call perspectives. So we form an opinion based on our experience. We have what I used to call a predisposition. I think I've mentioned that before, from our experiences. And then we have an action that we typically take. And then we have the effects of those actions. So the domino effect is, once I have that thought, let me give you an example. So if I have a bad thought about myself, for example, and I think, you know what, I just don't quite add up because I may not be as intelligent as other people, for example. Let's say that's a thought. And so when I think I'm not as intelligent, so I hold everybody else I hold my standards low for myself, but I have other standards for other people up here. And there's my mindset. Well, that's what I call your identity is being hacked because that's not truth. What's truth is you're here. But sometimes with our influences in life, we get distorted, and that can make it look like here. But that's just a big fat lie. And so here's what happens with that thought. So here goes the lie, the thought that I don't quite make it up to the populace standard. I'm not as popular, or whatever you've said about yourself. So what happens is, in a toxic situation, is that thought, it connects to your words, then connects to your thoughts, your actions, all of that I just displayed. And that's what happens, because they're all connected. It doesn't just stop here and resonate here. It affects all of it. Now, what's interesting about this domino effect is it also has a different effect. Yes, one affects the other. But I want you to think about this. If you were in, you know, those fun games now where you can get a pretend gun and shoot paintballs, right? So I think they have those now, those areas, event areas, where you can go and suit up and get your paintball and shoot the enemy or whatever, the opposite team. And it doesn't hurt you. There are bullets, thank goodness, but it's paint. So you get a splatter of paint on you. And so whatever team does the most shooting or has the most paint wins, I guess is how it goes. But you get the idea. So with something like that, I want you to think about these effects like that paintball. Okay, only this time, instead of going on a person or on an object, I want you to think behind that person or object, there is a fan, like a oscillating fan that blows the wind back at you. Like if you're during the hot days of Texas, you're sitting in front of a fan to cool you off, to give you cool air. So when you throw that paintball or shoot that paintball at that fan, that paint comes back on you. So what it was intended to hit your target, whatever that might be, what really happens, what also happens, because this absolutely happens, is the opposite happens. So that paint goes back on you. So whatever influences you through your senses, whatever you take in through your senses, through what you hear, what you speak, what you think, and what you do, comes back on you. And not only does it affect you psychologically, it affects you physically. All those things we mentioned earlier on a physiological level, when you start to get stressed, when your gut doesn't feel good. And you may think this is crazy, because you may think, I've never heard that before. But I can tell you that out of all the diseases in the world, out of all of the aches and pains and problems we have with our health, would it surprise you to tell you that only, or let me ask you, what percentage would you think are genetic? Because oftentimes we blame things on our genetics. But the reality is only 5% are genetic. Does that surprise you? It's true. Only 5%. So what does that say? That means 95% are of your life choices. And where do your life choices start? Where do your life choices? Where's the beginning of your life choices? It starts with a thought. Every word you speak, every step you take, every action you make, this is where it begins. And it affects everything else. So, what's the challenge here? To stop and think about what we're thinking about. And just to review, every thought we have has that emotion, right? But we've now categorized those emotions, love or fear. So it's okay to feel the emotion, but you have control over not letting it define you. Do not let your emotions define you. They guide you, they don't define you. And oftentimes it is our excuse to use the emotion, is that's what made me do it. Or this is the way I was feeling. Yes, you were feeling that way, but at the end of the day, you have a choice. Remember, you have power over the glue. If you don't know what that means, please go back and review the video on the power of our thinking. I know it'll bless you greatly, and I hope you really stop and think about that. Because when we don't think about that, what happens in our lifetime, what gets us stuck in our story, is because we allow our identity to be hacked. hacked by things that aren't true, hacked by half-truths, half by distorted truths. That's how we get hacked. And so to stop, put up the mental stop sign and stop and think about what it is that you're feeling, why you're feeling it. It's okay to feel. But again, it doesn't define you. The influences coming in your day in one day are immense. I think I've mentioned before that we live in a strobe light society. We have so much information, more now than ever before, coming at us from all directions, from social media, from TV, from the music we listen to the friends and family we circle that are in our circles. And what are we listening to? What are we paying attention to? Are we stopping and thinking about it, or are we accepting it as truth? Because that truth, what you think might be truth, might be affecting your body physiologically, psychologically. It might be affecting your then outcomes that become the domino effect. So here's the good news. You have control over it all. You are just filled with gifts throughout your body, physiologically, biologically, psychologically, even social culturally. Everybody has a role to play. And speaking of roles, we're going to be talking about personality next. So we'll all talk about our specific personality traits and how that plays a part. And they are very much a gift. And so I want you to think of yourself as a gift, that you have what it takes to do whatever you're purposed to do. And when you focus on that, when you focus on the good rather than the bad, then I promise you it'll serve you well. Well, I hope today was interesting. I want you to stop and think this week. Here is your challenge for the day, for the week, I should say. Your challenge for this week is I want you to think about a time, something in your life, whether it be social media, whether it be a song that you liked for many years and now it's become habit, it's one of your favorite songs, or a movie that you love, and it's hard to find a good movie these days, but I can tell you that it's okay to just go ahead and pick whatever it is of those three that you want. A movie, whatever it is, a movie, a song, a book, and ask yourself how much of that is your favorite is life-giving. Remember, we talked about the power of our words and the power of influence. So you want to go back and make sure, is it life-giving? Is it distorting any truth? Because the truth is that you're a gift. And if anything speaks other than that you are a gift and that you have a contribution to make and that you are needed, then it's a lie. And I would go back and maybe not discard it, but maybe think about it. That's what I encourage you to do this week. Stop and think about what you're thinking about. Stop and think about what comes in your life on a daily basis. From what you watch, what you speak, what you say, who you're paying attention to, who you allow in your circles, at your table. Is it life-giving? I encourage you to think about that this week. So I want to wish you the best this week, and I hope to see you next time. We'll deal with personality. Until then, I want to ask you a favor, and please like and subscribe and share with all your friends. I hope you have a great day. See you next time.